if we get that a trillion in new investment by industry by 2030, that's going to make a big difference.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's super cool. So what excites you about this? Because this, I mean, you like to do big projects, you like technical stuff, managing all the intricacies of these kind of things. What really excites you about this?
I think the fact that it's just the further extension of something that already exists, and we're so accustomed to having digital technology at our fingertips, and we don't even think about what how the chips are placed on the printed circuit boards, but it's really technical and important, and it can become mind-boggling if you really get into it.
Yeah.
And yeah. I mean, these are the kinds of things that I love to think about and to work on, to help people solve problems that they're facing with that sort of thing. Supply chain for this type of project is just rampant with opportunity to improve. And of course that appeals to me. So how can we make the whole supply chain better?
Yeah.
And make it work together better for everyone. So
will this drive the production of upstream materials too for the chip manufacturing in the United States? Because we probably have it in the ground now, or the resources someplace here in the U.S., and we probably weren't shipping it across the globe. But now, if so, that would be an interesting development too over the next years. Yeah.
So the U.S. is rich with all sorts of minerals, and we talked about sand. Yeah. So all of these different things can be used in the production of the raw materials that go into the production of these semiconductor materials. And like I talk about, Oklahoma, has this, a lot of people don't realize, but it has this rich history from, my grandpa used to, be a miner when he was a kid, and,
that's something.
Zinc and lead and tin and germanium is a byproduct of the lead and zinc smelting process. They back in the early 1900s, they didn't realize that was the really good stuff. It was just a byproduct. They went away.
Yeah.
And,
incredible. That's incredible. So in terms of jobs, because if this, as big as this is, this investment is, there's got to be first of all, construction jobs, multi-year construction jobs.
Yes.
Because it's not just, if you think about, the buildings are huge, the equipment are huge, they got to source the equipment someplace, they've got to build the buildings, but they've got to build the roads, they've got to build the electrical infrastructure to go in there, they've got to get all the utilities for miles and miles of
water, the HVAC, all of that. Yep.
Yeah. Got to be a ton of jobs created by this investment.
Yep. So that's like the first phase, is all of the construction and infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then you think about, these facilities are going to have clean rooms. It's a very sensitive ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be coming in as well. These are the jobs that these new factories will bring will be technical, skilled labor. And then it's also going to be bringing in a lot of engineering and technical specialists and
Mm-hmm.
all of that, designers and so forth as well.
Wow. Super cool.
It
So
is.
it sounds like we're at the precipice of some exciting times with the chips in the United States.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. And I think, there's almost nothing that you can purchase today that doesn't have some kind of chip in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's think about going to
Everything.
your,
You
for
look
you
around
it'd
your
be
room.
Meijer. For me, it's going to be Walmart.
Yeah.
and just anything.
Yeah.
Like you said, toys or um, a laptop, a cell phone.
Yeah, you got your
printer.
AirPods, you got anything, remote controls, you've got everything's got it in there.
Yeah.
Even your holiday lights have
Yeah,
them in them now.
exactly.
Yeah,
Your doorbell now.
Yeah.
Everything is digital, and if it's digital, there's a semiconductor in there somewhere.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, it's awesome talking about this because I'm excited to see that this is probably one of the more major investments that we've made in manufacturing in the United States in the last decade or so.
Oh,
and
yes, a long time.
Yeah.
And it's going to have impacts for several decades.
Yeah.
I think. It's something that I'm so pleased to see. The decision to make a major investment in U.S. manufacturing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Angela, thanks so much for being here today. It was awesome talking to you today about the CHIP Act, the investment that's coming around, and how America is rebuilding the chip supply, because I think it's going to be exciting times for this ahead. And just good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So if someone wants to reach out to you, Angela, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn is a great way to reach me, or my website, thurmanco.com.
All right. And that's THURMANCO.com.
Yes.
Thurmanco.com.
Thurmanco.com.
I want to say thanks to Angela Thurman for being here today again. I want to thank all you that are out there listening. I can see you out there that were listening. Thanks so much. I appreciate that each and every day. And if you didn't hear what we had talked about, got in late, go back to the beginning. Angela and I were talking about the over $1 trillion of new investment in chip fabrication and chip facilities in the United States over the next 5 or so years, because we're getting close to 2030, and how that's going to change, things in U.S. manufacturing. So, Angela, hang out. We'll finish offline. Lot about. We're going to be talking about rebuilding America's chip supply inside the planned semiconductor investments in the U.S. Angela, thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks, Damon. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here today. And we were catching up before we got on, and you have quite a background in the silicon chip sector in the United States. Let's just talk about your background a little bit, because I know there's a lot more than just the silicon work, but let's start there, because that did start right out of college for you.
It did. So following my graduation, before I could take my first real job at NASA, I had a summer where I was sort of at loose ends. And so during that time, I took an internship at a company called Eagle Pitcher Specialty Materials Division in Quapaw, Oklahoma, which is at the extreme northeast corner of Oklahoma. It is right on the Kansas border to the north and the Missouri border to the east. And it's that whole area is really filled with some amazing history. And so the reason that Eagle Pitcher is in that region is because that was once a very vital mining area. And so they mined for lead and zinc and tin, I believe, but definitely lead and zinc.
Okay.
And so Eagle Pitcher Specialty Materials Division produced germanium and silicon, both for its electro-optical properties and for semiconductor grade materials. Semiconductor material is monocrystalline, meaning it is a single crystal grown in, but Eagle Pitcher used the Zurkowsky method, which means this raw metal, it's a semiconductor, so it's not really metal, but we'll just call it metal for the sake of argument. They melted it in a crucible, and so the crucible spins in one direction, and then a seed crystal is lowered into that molten metal, and it spins in the opposite direction. And so very slowly, the seed crystal is withdrawn from that molten metal, and a new crystal grows. And that new crystal, called a boule, can weigh, in the case of germanium, 50 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, it's big, it's heavy, it is a big thing, and it's all in one single crystal formation. It's absolutely perfect.
Wow.
Just imagine that.
Yeah.
And then in the case of silicon, they're grown in even larger chambers. And so they might range from like 60 to 80 pounds.
Wow.
And again, it's all one single crystal formation. And depending on the seed crystal that you use, that determines the orientation of that crystal. So in a three-dimensional plane, that means the crystal could have like a 110 orientation, a 101 orientation, and so forth. And that would mean something to wafer people.
Yeah.
But we would also then introduce dopants depending on, and these are other elements that you would introduce to the germanium or the silicon to cause the germanium or the silicon to take on electrical properties to make it either positive or negative type. And that's when you're building a semiconductor, you'll have layers of PNP or NPN. And that's what creates the electrical properties for a semiconductor.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So it was a really great experience. And during that summer, I worked with Dr. Geroy Richter, conducting research. And so I would take these 2 centimeter, the 2 centimeters on one side, and then 1 by 1 centimeters on the other 2 sides. So they were long rectangles, but square on the edges. Samples, and put them into a test apparatus that would heat them up. And so we were measuring resistivity versus temperature. So I was mapping the resistivity of the sample over a range of temperatures. And that became some pretty historical work. And so it went into his research, and it also then the finished graph went into the marketing material from for EcoPicture and was referenced by everyone from that point forward. So it was a great experience.
So does in general, does the receptivity go down or go up as the temperature goes down or up? Does it go the same as in temperature goes higher, resistivity goes higher, or
it goes down? It goes down.
Okay.
So
it gets hotter, less resistant.
Yeah, as the material heats up, the resistivity goes down.
Yeah. So you want it warmer if you wanted to go faster.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. Interesting stuff. So, we've got a lot of things happening in the chip world. I mean, it started a few years ago now, and investments. Well, COVID showed us that our supply chain for chips was very dependent on really on one country, and we decided to change that a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the U.S. and what's happening with the chip infrastructure in the U.S.
Okay. Yeah, of course. So, so the chip industry is very, very dependent on Taiwan. Yeah. And there are some types of chips that are made exclusively in Taiwan, and that's not something that's going to change very quickly. Yeah. But thankfully, due to the CHIPS Act, there is a great deal of funding that is now available for U.S. manufacturers. And because of the federal funding that's available, that has also sparked commercial funding as well. So I'm just going to read from some of the stats that I've got pulled up. So according to the 2025 Semiconductor Industry Association's State of the Industry report, companies in the U.S. semiconductor ecosystem have announced more than $500 billion in private sector investments. So that's a
500 B with a billion over
500 billion. So $500 billion in private sector investments. So that's apart from
the government investment.
The government funded CHIPS Act. Yes. Yeah. And so globally, McKinsey reports that semiconductor firms plan to invest roughly $1 trillion in new fabrication plants through 2030. So that's coming up really fast. The amount of time that it takes to build a new facility and then add all of the equipment, get the workforce in place, that's coming up really fast. And then the CHIPS Act was actually signed in August of 2022, and that authorized about $280 billion to boost the U.S. semiconductor research and manufacturing. So we're already seeing that being put to work here in the U.S. I know, I'm in Houston, I'm in Texas. Texas is a huge semiconductor manufacturing and research force. We've got, two big hubs of semiconductor fabrication centered around Dallas, the north side of Dallas, Sherman and that area, and then also in Austin. And then you had mentioned in our discussion before the show started about seeing new facilities in Arizona. Yeah. Arizona is another big hub. And then to finish off that trifecta, if you will, New York is leading the way with advanced semiconductor production and packaging and research as well. So those three states, New York, Arizona, and Texas, are really where the focus has been thus far, although there are many other facilities that are outside that triangle, but we're seeing a lot of growth in those three states primarily.
Yeah. So when we think about chips, I mean, there's chips in everything, right? Anything electronic anymore just about has chips. Little toys, little trinkets. We have $10 toys that have chips in them anymore.
Exactly.
So when we talk about the chips that we're gearing up to produce in the United States, is there a certain sector of chips? Is there a certain, are we looking at higher end chips? Are we looking for more specialized? What is it really that we're doing in the U.S. that, as far as will change the supply chain?
Well, one thing that we want to think about is, we just want our entire supply chain to be more resilient. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to be in a position where we're going to jeopardize our safety, security, and our economy.
Yeah.
So right now, if and in the COVID days prior to the CHIPS Act, for example, anything and everything could be dependent on a foreign government.
Yeah.
For our manufacturing, and that could be anything from your vehicle to an F-35 fighter jet.
Yeah.
To your mobile handset, your cell phone.
Yeah.
To your refrigerator.
Yeah.
But also life-saving medical devices.
Yep.
All of those things could be and actually were dependent on the chips that were manufactured in other locations, foreign shores. And without any sort of, any malice or anything like that, just the time it took to get those products to our manufacturing facilities, it took ages.
Yeah.
And any kind of design changes would have to be approved and implemented into the products. So that also added time to the manufacturing process as well. And so having those chips now built in the US is going to just reduce the manufacturing time by weeks, even months, because we don't have to worry about the logistics of, ships coming from, other shores and then having to go through the docks and customs and all of that.
Yeah. And if I remember right, during the time when we really were hitting the chip shortage, we had vehicles that were being delivered without chips because they had no room at the factories anymore to hold the vehicles that already didn't have chips that they needed to produce. And I even think about a friend of mine that ran a truck upfitting company, fairly good sized one. And they had literally tens of trucks sitting in their lot that the dealerships had to deliver because they had no room, and they were their trucks, but they didn't have all the components, all the electronics in them yet.
Yes.
And some they could roll in and work on them, but they couldn't start them and use all the equipment on them.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really quite a deal when that happened. I can see why this caused, probably billions and billions of dollars of upset into our economy and cost overruns.
Yes.
So, yeah, it was quite an awakening, and it's cool to see though that we are investing because, my goodness, these are big facilities.
Yes.
They're big.
Yes.
I mean, it looked like the one I drove by. It was like it's at least in the tens of acres, if not well over 100 and into the like 200 acres, because it looked like, I grew up in the Dakotas where 640 acres is a mile square. I don't know if they were quite that big, but they were big. It was big. The one I saw in Arizona, and you have to imagine that just to gear up for that, like you said, to get ready to construct a refinery size facility is years just planning and permitting and design. And so when are we going to see, do you have any idea when we're going to actually see production starting in the US?
Well, some of these manufacturers are doing expansions. So here in Texas, we're seeing a lot of expansions of
That's cool, then.
facilities. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll see more of that.
Yeah.
And so we should be seeing production from those facilities. I would suppose even this year.
Yeah.
So they're going to be adding additional lines for new wavelengths. So their chips are going to be maybe wide band gap or a different type of chip.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know nothing about chips. I know they're made out of, to me, it's made out of sand and a bunch of metal, and that's about
it. Sand is silicon. That's only silicon, and there are other elements that are semiconductors as well, and they have very specific applications. So germanium was the original transistor. And it's still widely used, especially for power applications. But silicon is still the big workhorse. It's the second most abundant element on Earth. So of course we're going to be using a lot of silicon. But even carbon is a semiconductor. Diamond is a semiconductor in certain applications.
Wow.
And then, we've got several compounds. So if we think about gallium arsenide, indium arsenide, even tin and lead in certain applications can be semiconductors.
So as we see this, we probably won't see a drastic change in pricing and the end products or things like that from it. But what you're saying is we'll just have a more stable supply to feed the products that we have around us.
Well, some people say that because the labor charges in the U.S. are more expensive than they are in other countries, that this is going to cause the chips that are built in the U.S. to be more expensive, but that has to be weighed with the fact that you now have a reliable source that is local. And so when you think about the total cost for purchasing those chips, it's a risk mitigation factor. Is it worth it to pay a little more for chips that are manufactured in the U.S. When you'll have a reliable source that can be delivered in a matter of, say, weeks rather than months, and have that that other source is at risk sometimes.
Well, and that risk factor is a big deal. I mean, because if you're in Arizona, Texas, or New York, and even if my plant is my plant where I'm producing something that needs the chips is in Detroit, say, within a few hours, you can have a 747 full of chips to your door if you really need it.
Exactly. So that's 1 million pounds worth of chips, by the way.
And it's doable. I mean, and that's one thing I think that that can really make a huge difference. That risk factor. We've all gotten comfortable with offshoring, and it definitely needs to be a part of our overall economy and how we do things. But there's certain things, that, well, like we saw in COVID, just simple things, as simple as surgical masks or other products that we take we take for granted that they just are going to always show up, and we don't understand that supply chain behind them can be around on the other side of the world, and if it could be an earthquake, it could be a hurricane, it could be whatever, and you could be without those products for months.
And one thing I also want to point out is, the transistor was invented in the U.S.
Yes.
And somehow we didn't value our own intellectual property, and we just more or less gave it away.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm looking forward to a day when the U.S. returns to leading the development of chips and technology like that.
Yeah.
So we don't have to rely on third-party manufacturers for these, really, really important devices. So when it is, especially it's strategic intellectual property, that may play a role in our security and defense, let's keep that IP at home.
Yeah. Well, you make a great point, because even something, and this is, I'm kind of minimizing it a little bit. There's a word that might work. A chip that's in your vehicle, right? It could be a chip that's in your vehicle, but if I outsource all the design, all the thing, and I just tell somebody I want the chip to do this, and they're around the globe, my vehicle depends on them. Whereas if I own it, or at least a company in the U.S. owns it, or that we work with, and we know at least that if the government's stable, we probably can do relatively stable, we can do what we need to do, and that's quite a difference when you're looking at, what does the production of one vehicle produce for revenue and jobs and profit for it. Just take like an F-150. Say your F-150 chips were made in Taiwan, and I know they do a great job of making chips. I'm not saying anything wrong, but if I live in earthquake country, and they always say when the big one comes, the whole West Coast is going, or a lot of it is. And if something horrible like that happened, you're done. That vehicle's done, and not at least having dual source, if nothing else, is a huge risk. Yeah. On simple things, on just the vehicle's not simple, but I mean it's an everyday thing.
Yes.
And vehicles are I think are great, because just like everything else, the amount of technology in them just continues to escalate faster and faster. Yeah.
Well, in Austin, we already have self-driving vehicles on the road, and I mean we have here in Texas, we have semis that are autonomous.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and again, it's all powered by chips, and it's cool to see that we're investing in chips, and we're making this a part of the future for us, because if we get that $1 trillion in new investment by industry by 2030, that's going to make a big difference.
It is.
Yeah. That's super cool. So what excites you about this? Because this, you like to do big projects, you like technical stuff, managing all the intricacies of these kind of things. What really excites you about this?
I think the fact that it's just the further extension of something that already exists, and we're so accustomed to having digital technology at our fingertips, and we don't even think about what how the chips are placed on the printed circuit boards, but it's really, really technical and important, and It's I mean, it can become mind-boggling if you really get into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, these are the kinds of things that I love to think about and to work on,
Yeah.
to help people solve problems that they're facing with that sort of thing. Supply chain for this type of project is just rampant with opportunity to improve. And of course that appeals to me. So
Yeah.
how can we make the whole supply chain better?
Yeah.
And make it work together better for everyone. So
will this
I like that.
drive the production of upstream materials too for the chip manufacturing in the
Absolutely.
United States? Because I mean, we
Yeah.
probably have it in the ground now, or the resources someplace here in the U.S., and we probably weren't shipping it across the globe. But now, if so, that will be an interesting development too over the next years. Yeah.
So the U.S. is rich with all sorts of minerals, and we talked about sand.
Yeah.
So all of these different things can be used in the production of the raw materials that go into the production of these semiconductor materials. And I mean, like I talk about, Oklahoma, has this, a lot of people don't realize, but has this rich history from, my grandpa used to, be a miner when he was a kid. And,
Yeah, that's something.
Zinc and lead and tin and germanium is a byproduct of the lead and zinc smelting process. They back in the early 1900s, they didn't realize that was the really good stuff. It was just a byproduct. They went away.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Incredible. That's incredible. So in terms of jobs, because if this, as big as this is, big as this investment is, there's got to be first of all, construction jobs, multi-year construction jobs.
Yes.
Because it's not just, if you think about, the buildings are huge, the equipment are huge, they got to source the equipment someplace, they've got to build the buildings, but they've got to build the roads, they've got to build the electrical infrastructure to go in there, they've got to get all the utilities for miles and miles
of water, the HVAC, all of that.
Got to be a ton of jobs created by this investment.
Yep. So that's like the first phase, is all of the construction and infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then you think about, these facilities are going to have clean rooms. It's very it's a very sensitive ecosystem. And so that's going to be coming in as well. These are the jobs that these new factories will bring will be technical, skilled labor, and it's also going to be bringing in a lot of engineering and technical specialists and all of that, designers and so forth as well.
Wow. Super cool. So it sounds like we're at the precipice of some exciting times with the chips in the United States.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. And I think, there's almost nothing